everyone once. Okay. So, yeah, let's continue. Last session, we learned about how to deal with forms. We are learning about form events. So, we have two important events on submit, another one on reset. These are the form events. And we are going to learn how to deal with the concept of working with forms. So today we will see one simple example. Um, First, we will see what is the issue with directly handling a form. Means how to collect the data from the form and submit the data to server. How it happens. Means what is the issue in a React way? What is the process? How React submits all this? We will start. So we will create one simple form component. I'm adding a new component here. So form demo. And let's add a file form demo.jsx. And in form demo.jsx, export function form demo. Here return a simple presentation. And here we will add class name and yeah. So let's keep a simple form container. In the form container, we are giving some register and a simple data list with term. One is some username and we have a text box and we need some age. We have input type as number and we have some city. It is having some drop down. So we have a select city and we are having these details we will keep and we will put a button and the button is submit. Now what is the concept here is, let's keep it in the startup and form demo is the component. So let's run this. We created a simple form and what is the concept is collect the data from the form and submit to some API. So how do you collect the data from all these elements? And how do we submit that to the server? In React way, if we have to manage, then it is very lengthy. It is very complex. Why? Because first, how do you collect data from every element? In every element, whatever data they enter, we have to collect and we need to store in some reference. That means you need a on change event for every element. That means name change, age change, city change, because two-way binding works only with on change. So here we don't have any DOM methods like on submit click, you get element by IDs and access them. So what we need to do, just the example I will show here. So we are creating There are so many techniques. I will give you basic how React works. I am creating a constant, and here we have user and set user, and use state. Every user have, it's an object. It is having username, which is string. It is having age, which is number, and a city, that is a string. We are accessing, we are configuring the data. Now, what we need to do? We need to collect the data from the form. So, how to collect all the data? Every field related data, how to collect and store in a reference. So, we have to use a function handle name change. What this function will do? Collect the value from name text box and set user. Set user is an object. In that object, we have three fields. What are those fields? User name. And what is user name? Username is the value coming from text box. So e dot target dot value. And what about age? Age will be entered in the age text box, which will be saved on the change of age that we have to access. That means it is coming from user.age. User.age is nothing but user have an state. In that state, we have a age field. In that age, data is stored. And what about city? City is also user.city. This is name change. We need another function. What is it? Handle age change. Here we need to collect the age, set user. We need to define username, and username is, this is user dot username, and age is coming from e dot target dot value. It is coming from e dot target dot value, and city is again user dot what city. This is another event we need to write. We need one more event. What is that function? What is it? Handle city change. On that, we have to collect the city. Set user, username. Username is coming from user dot username. Age is coming from user dot age, and city is coming from e dot target dot value. That's how we need to collect. And what we need to do is, these we need to connect with these text boxes. That means on change. So handle name change, and on change. So handle age change, and drop down on change. We need handle city change. Now when form is submitted, that means form needs an on submit. On submit, we will write handle submit, which is not there. We will create a function, and the function is using handle submit. And here, what handle submit have to do, already we learned in event concept. By default, submit button is a generic button. Generic button means what? By default, it have a functionality of submitting the data. How to prevent it? So we have to use e dot prevent default. Prevent default is a method. I told you stop propagation and prevent default. Okay. Next, what? We need to submit the data to server. So we will use console.log temporarily. Temporarily, we are displaying that user data. Whatever data we collected, we are submitting. So we designed a form. Let's run this. Go to the console, inspect. Let's open the console. And in this console, so some data. It is empty as of now. We entered username and you entered the age. You selected a city and you click on submit. Then the data should be submitted. As of now, we are just collecting the data. Now, this is very lengthy process. That means if there are many fields in a form, every field we need to collect, we need to store in a reference, and we need to manage. If you see this, then you will say that JavaScript is better than React in, because in JavaScript get element by ID and just text box drop downs we can easily access. But in React, this is the only way how it can do. That means how we can collect the data, how we can store the data, and how we can submit the data. This is the actual process. This is not very much satisfying for developers. That's the reason the React way of working with forms is not recommended. We generally use third parties. Third parties, what they do, they write all such logics internally and they will provide simplified techniques of accessing data and submitting the data. So the way how React works is very lengthy. We can implement other techniques also, but they are also lengthy. That means there are so many techniques, but every technique is such lengthy technique. That means what value you entered in text box, what value you selected in drop down, everything we have to identify on change. So we have to write on change for every element. This is lengthy process. So this is the example. So this is React default form handling. I will give an example. This is form demo.what.jsx. This is the example we are having. This is the example. I will copy that. This is the example of that. It is simple. But React developers are not satisfied with this approach. It is not satisfied with this approach. That is the reason we use lot of third parties. So React supports various third party form libraries, like you have a Formik, we have like React hook form, we have like Telerik forms. These are all different popular third party libraries, different third party libraries, different third party libraries. And I will show you one third party and I will guide you in another third party. So based on the different we have to use. Remember, it's not guarantee that every project uses the same third parties. So that depends on their requirement. But if a developer knows one how to use, others will not be exactly same. Lot of changes are there every third party, but you should able to explore yourself and learn what changes, because we can't guarantee that everybody use this the same. So if you learn at least one two, then you will get an idea how they are handling, and any new third party your companies are using, you can easily explore and implement them. But all third parties are completely different. They are completely different. We'll see how these third parties work. See, what is the Formik concept? Actually, we have same thing. How to achieve in a simple way, we will see that. See the Formik, you have npmjs.com. npmjs is Node Package Manager official website. We already know this. Here I am searching for Formik. We are searching for Formik, and you see the Formik, and when you search for this Formik library, you see the Formik. What is the concept they say? Build forms in React without tears. That means what they are saying, don't cry because it's a lengthy process you have done in your React. Now don't cry. We have a solution for you. Right? That means literally when a developer is using the forms, he will be very much not satisfied in React way because it's a lengthy process. And these people say that we have a simple technique for that. So let's see how to use this forming. And remember, few months back it is updated means some new things they may add. So many new changes they may have done. And every few months they may be changing some new concepts they may be adding into this. So we need to keep updated. That means we cannot use the same old concept that we learned 5 months back, 10 months back. We need to keep in touch with these third parties. We need to check what they are releasing, what they are deprecating. Deprecating means removing certain features. Okay, let's see how to use this. What are the features and how they work? Like this, there is another one. Who is that? React hook form is there. This is React hook form. This is another React form library. This is React hook form. And these people, so they say that flexible, extensible, easy to validate forms. Because validation also in React way, if we have to do, it's a very lengthy process. Validating also. But now these third parties will provide a better service. Actually, we have another third party like Telerik. Telerik is also a third party. This is Telerik. Telerik is very popular, and but it is a paid service. At high level companies use this Telerik because you see the customers of Telerik, NASA, Microsoft, IBM, these are the customers of Telerik. That means Microsoft, IBM, like software development companies, they have their genius developers who can build everything, right? They build softwares. Then why they have to buy components from these third parties? That means Microsoft, IBM itself are software development companies. They can build. Then why they take help of third parties like Telerik and all? Because concept is very simple. Even they are capable of doing it, they don't want to waste time in that. For example, you are having some spectacles. The frame belongs to one company, lens belongs to another company. Am I right? That means now you cannot ask the frame manufacturing company, why don't you manufacture lens also? You know, your mobile's camera is different and your mobile brand is different. That means you have Realme, you have iPhone, you have all these. Their cameras are not manufactured by Apple. Their cameras are manufactured by the manufacturers of camera popular companies like Sony. You know that many of your cameras in your mobile, they are not actually built by your mobile company. Then you cannot ask why the mobile company is not building the camera, because already they have their own business to do and they are very busy with that business and way they cannot involve in everything. Then what they do, they simply take help from others who are already doing it, who are specialized in this, they are already doing it, let them do. We will take from them and use. That's the reason people who are working on IBM, Microsoft like projects, means their company related projects, they use these third party very much because they are official partners of that Telerik. That's the reason in such companies they use Telerik as a third party. So these are different. You can see Later, I will show you so many components provided by them. So if you can use one third party, you can handle others also, right? So we will see one simple example how to use the Formik. So Formik library. We will see how to use the Formik library. How the Formik library works. So Formik library, one important about this Formik is it is a third party library for React forms. It is a third party library for React forms. So it provides predefined functions and components to handle form interactions. It provides predefined functions and components to handle form interactions. Ready-made functions are present. Ready-made components are present. So it is easy to extend and validate the forms. It is easy to extend and validate the forms. Not only that, it provides several internal security features that prevent scripting attacks and request forgeries and scripting attacks, request forgery, and cross page posting. These are all some security related issues. I think I already explained you about them. Cross-site scripting attacks, request forgeries, and cross-page postings. These are the technical issues that we face, especially while accessing data from a form, submitting the data. Actual developers have to use lot of techniques manually to handle these security concepts. What is the specialty about third parties is they internally manage the security. Just you need to implement and use it. So you don't need to worry about writing security related some functionalities to prevent different types of attacks. Already they are built in with such features. That is one of the major advantages because whenever we use forms, one main issue with the forms is security. So these are implemented automatically. We need to just use them, right? So Formik have so many such concepts. So how to use a Formik? Remember, this is a very big library. They have several levels. So we have so many topics in that level by level we will see. That means in first attempt itself, you will not get a solution to everything. Level by level, you will have different concepts and finally you will get a solution of a simple form, right? Let's see first level, how we have to design a form, how we can use a form. Actually, here to set up, first what you have to do is install Formik library for project. So npm install Formik and save. We have to install the Formik library for project. So you need to install the Formik library for project. So after that, Formik library provides use Formik hook. It provides use Formik hook to configure a form. It provides use Formik hook to configure a form. So what you have to do is import use Formik from Formik. You have to import that use Formik from Formik. Configuring the form, interacting with the form, this is all managed by using a hook called use Formik. So we need to use this use Formik. And how that use Formik works, I will show you. So here, now I will clean up these functions because these all process, you saw how much I have to write. I need to create an object, so many events. I will clean up all these now. I will remove this on submit also, we will remove on change. We are removing all these functionalities. Okay, now it's cleaned. Means it is an empty form we are having. Same empty form we designed. Now this is a simple empty form. There is nothing happening inside this. Right? Currently we are not writing any logic for that. There is nothing there. Okay. Now let's install the Formik library for project. npm install Formik and save. I am installing Formik library. Formik is a third party library. You can use this Formik for designing the forms. Okay, once the Formik is it is ready. Now, in order to use the Formik, you have to import. You have to import use Formik from the Formik library. This is the hook you need. That means use Formik is a hook you have to import from Formik. Now, how to create a form? How to configure a form? So what you have to do is to configure the form. So you have to import. So use Formik from Formik. Import use Formik from Formik. We have to import use Formik from Formik. Then we have to configure form with options. You have to configure the form with options. So we have a constant Formik is equal to use Formik. This hook contains some options. We need to set up some options here. What are the options use Formik is having? Initial values. It is having initial values. Initial values is an object. What are those? I will tell you. Initial values. We have validation. This is a function. We have validation schema. That is also a function. And we have on submit. On submit is also a function. And we have enable reinitialize. This is a boolean. So that means you can set it true or false. Like this, we have some important attributes to define. A Formik is designed by using initial values. Now, what are these initial values? Validation, on submit, enable reinitialize. So initial values is nothing but initial values defines the values that a form have to handle. Initial values defines the values that a form have to handle. That means what are the values form have to handle? They are defined using initial values. Actually, it is a key and value collection. It is a key and value collection. That means it is an object which contains key and value. And another point is key refers to element name. Key refers to element name. Key refers to the element name. Element name, the form element name. So here very important is make sure that every form element have a name. You know that already in HTML, you know, in HTML form cannot submit value of any element if there is no name. You have to make sure that every form element have a reference name, right? That is initial values. So let's see here first. I am creating a constant Formik. Formik is a reference. Reference name you can give anything and use Formik, and it requires some attributes. What are the attributes? First attribute is the first important attribute is we need initial values. Initial values. Initial values is an object. This object defines what are the values you want to handle in the form. That means what elements and what values you want to handle. Key a value. Key is element name. So make sure that every element is having a name. This name refers to username, and this name refers to age, and this name refers to city. These are the three values. So what are initial values? We are expecting name, and name is empty. Another one, age. Age is also empty, number. And the city is a string. You can put default values also. Default values, then those values will be displayed inside those elements. I am just keeping them empty. All are empty. Okay. That is initial values. That means what values you need to deal with. Okay. Next important is, do you need any validation for these values? Validation later we will learn. So, but point is, do you need any validation? That means name required, name minimum 4 characters, maximum 10 characters, age must be between some 15 to 25, or city must be selected. That means we need some validation. If you need validation, you have a validation function. Validation function here again, validation function means there is no ready-made validation. You have to write manual. That means how to verify whether value is there in a username field or not. We have to write a condition. If username dot length is 0, that means there is no value. If username dot length is greater than some 15, then it is not valid. Everything you have to manually write. That is actually validation. So, what is validation? Validation means it defines a function where you can manually configure validation functions validations for elements in form, where you can manually configure validations for elements in form. We have to manually write the validations. There is another technique. Instead of writing validation manually, you have a separate validation library. Separate validation libraries are there. You can use those validation libraries. What is the specialty of what validation library is? Validation library have ready-made validation structure. That means they will provide ready-made methods through which you can easily validate. So validation also, you don't need to write. Ready-made validations will be there. You can attach them. If you want to attach ready-made validations, then you have to use validation schema. Validation schema means you don't write the validations, you attach some ready-made validations. Actually, ready-made validation libraries also present. In React.js, we have ready-made validation libraries. One popular validation library we use with React is we have a library called Yup. Yup is a validation library, and actually Yup is a schema builder, and it is very popular for value parsing and validation. Yup is a very popular library used by software developers to verify whether the value is same type or not, and whether the value is matching our requirement or not. And for that, what these people do, they write already validations ready-made. Just they provide the validation structure, you have to just use it. So you can decide whether you want to write your validations or you want to attach a structure. If you want to attach a structure, you need to download another library. That all I will show you how to do that. And in that case, we need validation schema. So it defines predefined validation structure. Predefined validation structure from third parties. It defines predefined validation structure from third parties. You can use ready-made validation structure. And what is on submit? On submit actually, it defines, it collects the data from form and performs submit action. So it collects the data from form and performs the submit action. That is on submit. And we have on blur also. So on blur. That means actually they are very popular with on blur and on change. On blur we know already, we discussed about that. It defines actions on blur. So blur. We have on change. That means how we use Formik dot handle change like that. I will show you those points. It defines actions on change. These general events are internally built actually, and we don't need to write them like this. There is another shortcut technique I will show you. So these are options. Another option we have, enable reinitialize. Initialize. So it allows the default, it allows to change the initialized values in form elements. Actually, initialized values in form elements are not changeable because React supports one-way binding. In one-way binding, they are not allowed to change. We have to set this enable reinitialize as what? True. If you set enable reinitialize to, then it allows to change. You will see them in different options, how to handle, we will see that. Now, all are not required every time. So we will see one by one basic level how everything works. First step, how to collect the data from form and submit. That is the first basic thing. So what we have to do now, see, you configured initial values. After that, I am writing one more action on submit. On submit indicates what functionality to do on submit. On submit, you can use a function. This function will collect the values. Values are nothing but it will collect the user details. What you can do with that user detail, you write whatever you want. That means I will use console.log. What is it? User. That means currently we are presenting them. Later we can submit to APIs and all. Post, put methods we can do. That's it. Now we designed a form, and form initial values are these, and on submit it has to perform this functionality. Now what we have to do, go to the form. Here we have to use on submit. On submit, what is the functionality it should perform? Previously what we done, we written a function called handle submit, and that function we are using. Need to write any function. Already Formik is having a function handle submit. Just attach it. Automatically it knows what to do. That means it will collect the data from the form and submit the data. Okay, what name have to do? Identities in the form and update those changes into the name field. So what we have to write on change, you don't need to write a function. Already function is there. You just use it. That means Formik dot handle change. That's it. And is there any function written for change? No, you don't need to write. For this also same. What is it? On change, Formik dot handle change. Okay, this also same. What is it? On change, Formik dot handle change. This also performs change. That's it. Now your logic is very simple. And you see now, we will open the form area. I will refresh and I will enter the details. I am entering some age. I am entering some city and click on submit. It gets that and display. One warning is coming like button type you haven't mentioned. That's okay. Button type I will give. What is the button type? So button type we will give. So what is the button type? So button type is important. We will make it as submit. And one more important thing, your values are mismatching. This is not name. It is what? Username. That is the option. Okay. Now you can see I entered the username and I selected age. I entered I selected a city. I click on submit. The data is collected. This looks little better than previous. Remember, this is only first level. There are so many more techniques which will make more simple. You may be thinking like more simple than this. Yes, it can do more simple way than this. That means this is better. Even you have a lengthy form. You don't need to write on change for everyone. Ready-made, you have to just use it. Later we will learn how to use this data, submit to servers and performing different functionalities. We will do that. So initially what we are doing, we are collecting the data from the form and submitting the data. And for that, just this, we need to configure a form. And after configuring the form, we have few more works to do, right? What we need to do after configuring the form: define events for form and form elements. Define events for form and form elements. Then for form, on submit, you have to write Formik dot handle submit. That's what we need to do. And for suppose you have a text box, it is having some name like username. And in this, we have on change. We just need to write Formik dot handle change. That's it. Suppose we are having a drop down. So on change. So we have Formik dot handle change. Radios, checkbox. For everyone, just you need to configure on change. Not only on change, we can write other events also, but for that we need validations and all. That means we can write like this: input type is text, input type is text, name is some username. You say on change is Formik dot handle change, handle change. And we have on blur is equal to, so Formik dot handle blur. That means by default it have change functionality and it have blur functionality. Blur functionality. Usually we use this for validations, that while validating we can add these kind of events. Handle change, handle blur, these are the actions. So that is a simple example for how to define a form. How do we configure the form and use the form? Example, and remember, every third party is not same. Actually, another third party, I will show you hook form. It is complete different. Complete different. They don't have same hooks. They don't have same techniques. Technique is completely different. So this is Formik, very popular, and I will copy this example. Same I am giving form demo dot what JSX. This is the Formik example we are having, right? So the actual way of dealing with the form and the shortest way of dealing with the form, right? But you have more smaller concepts also, means simple concept also there. Now the question here is how you validate the form. So we designed a form. We are able to submit the data from the form. Now how you will remember, radios, checkbox, for everyone same concept. Everyone the same concept. That means if you have a radio, you have a check, because sometimes people have doubt like how I deal with a radio, how I deal with a checkbox. Same how you do with your suppose you have gender and you need to configure here input type is radio. Later we will create some examples also, this is like male, and here we have female, and you know that. So these radios needs a name, and what is the name? Gender. And you know what is the value submitted by radios? Radios and checkboxes. What values they submit? They submit on as a value. Radios and checkbox will not submit the male or female like labels. They submit on, O and on. That is the reason they need a value. We need a value. This is male and this is a value. And value is what? Female. Female. Like this we need to define. Now what we need to do here? So we need to configure another initial value. What is it? Gender. Gender is also expecting a string. And here we need to configure, what is it? On change. So Formik dot handle change. The same we need to define for this radio also. And you know that radios must have a common name. And you see now here we have radio. I entered some name. So I entered some age. I entered some city. I selected the gender, male or female, and I clicked on submit. Then it should get that and display. You are here, you don't need any conditions. Generally, what you do in your JavaScript, if name is checked, then store this value, else this value. Here we need simple logic. That means simple collecting the data and using the data. Lot of techniques you will understand here. So this is general example of that. That's an example. Just I'm adding one more field, that is just check boxes, radios, how to handle. I am just showing that. Now, how we can set up the validation? What are various levels of validation? That means name is required, age is required, city is required, gender is required, name minimum, maximum, password length should be 4 to 15. How? All this. We need validation. That we'll see next session. Monday we will see that. So Monday we will learn how to create validations. Validations. If we can do the validations, we will see more in the third parties, right? Monday will continue.